So today's lesson is on imperial measurement. So the imperial system are units like yards, feet, inches, miles. Currently it is what the United States uses, although most of the rest of the world has changed to metric. But today it's all about the imperial system. So the imperial system was actually created because these different units were similar to different body parts. So we call these reference. So when we're talking about a thumb, we're talking about from the knuckle of your thumb to the end of your thumb, and that was approximately an inch. So you can fill this in on your chart. The abbreviation for inch is IN, or the double apostrophe. When we're talking about a foot, well, that one kind of stuck. You've probably seen people measure the lengths of rooms by stepping one foot in front of the other and then saying, well, it's approximately this many feet. That is because a foot was originally used to be a foot. The abbreviation for foot is FT, or a single apostrophe. The relationship between inches and feet, you are probably aware that 1 foot is the same thing as 12 inches. All right, arm span. When we're talking arm span, we're talking the length from your nose to your fingertip, and that is approximately a yard. The abbreviation for yards is YD, and there is no fancy punctuation abbreviation. As far as their relationship goes, 1 yard is the same thing as 3 feet. And then if you use that, 1 foot is 12 inches. We also know that 1 yard is the same thing as 36 inches. And the last one, the biggest imperial unit, is the mile, which is approximately the distance that you will walk in 20 minutes if you're walking at an average pace. Now this completely depends on the person, but this was the way that they came up with the unit. So the abbreviation for miles is MI. Do not just put M. M stands for meters. MI is miles. Make sure you don't get those confused. And as far as the relationship between miles and the rest of the units, 1 mile is 1,760 yards. And if we multiply that by 3 to figure out how many feet it is, we get that 1 mile is 5,280 feet. So make sure you have this table completely filled in. You are going to be using these relationships to convert between units, just like we did for metric units, but now using these relationships. So we need to convert between these imperial units. We're going to start with converting 5 yards to feet. So we said yesterday we need to start with the unit that we have, and we multiply everything by this proportion. We multiply by how feet and yards are related. So now if you look back at that chart that we just filled in, we know that 1 yard is the same thing as 3 feet. So that is the information that needs to go inside our brackets. But where does it go? Well, we want the yards to cancel out this unit of yards that we have here. So the way that we make it cancel out is we put it in the denominator of this fraction. So then we will end up with a yard divided by a yard, which will cancel. And the unit that we want to change that yard into is feet. So the relationship between feet and yards is that 1 yard is the same thing as 3 feet. So start by putting in your units where they go in the numerator or the denominator, and then fill in the appropriate numbers and make sure you put the right number in front of the right unit. So now we get to do the operations. So we have our 5 yards that we need to multiply by the 3 feet and then divide by 1. And so you know that dividing by 1 doesn't really do anything, so essentially this is 5 times 3. 5 times 3 is 15, and because the units of yards have canceled out, we know that it is 15 feet. So, there, 5 yards is 15 feet. Now again, you probably could have figured that out on your own, but we need to learn the process with the easy ones so that we can do the harder ones later. So for inches, we want to convert 5 yards to inches. So again, we start with our 5 yards. We're going to multiply by a proportion. We have a conversion for yards to inches in our table, So we want the yards to cancel out, so yards goes in the denominator. We want to get inches, so inches goes on top, and we said that 1 yard is 36 inches. So now we have 5 multiplied by 36 divided by 1. And we do this math, we get 180 inches. Now another way for you to solve this question was maybe to not go all the way back to the 5 yards, but take the 15 feet that we just calculated and change that measurement in feet to inches. You would get the same answer both ways. Now, something about the imperial system is they never use decimals. They never say, this is 5.1 feet. If somebody asks you how tall you are, you say, I'm 5'8", or whatever. You don't say, that doesn't mean you are 5.8 feet tall. That means you are 5 feet 8 inches. So when it says we want to convert 51 inches into feet and inches, we need to figure out how many whole feet and then how many inches are left over. So we're going to start off by doing the same thing we've done. We've got 51 inches, and we want to convert it to the biggest unit we are looking for, which in this case is feet. So inches we want to cancel out, that goes in the denominator, feet goes on the top, and the relationship is that 1 foot is 12 inches. So in this case, we do our 51 inches multiplied by the 1 foot, and then we divide by the 12 inches. 51 multiplied by 1, well, multiplying by 1 keeps things the same. Dividing by 12, we end up with 4.25 feet. Now that doesn't mean it's 4 feet and 25 inches or 4 feet and 2.5 inches. That's not what it means at all. It means we have 4 feet and then a quarter of another foot. So now what we need to figure out is that quarter of another foot, that 0.25 feet that we've got, how many inches is that? So we're going to ignore the 4. So in your calculator, you can just push -4, enter, and that will give you the entire decimal. We never want to round. This one is a terminating decimal though, so it's not too big of a deal, but it's good to get into the habit. So that 0.25 feet, we need to convert that leftover part back into inches. So our feet are going to cancel out. We want inches. 1 foot is 12 inches, and 0.25 times 12 is 3 inches. So what does this mean? This means that 51 inches, we've got our 4 whole feet here, and then our 3 inches that were left over. So 51 inches is 4 feet and 3 inches. Okay. Now if we wanted to take that and convert it into yards and feet and inches, well, again, we want to start with the biggest unit. So 51 inches, we want to convert that to yards. Ooh, that's not correct. We would want the inches to cancel out and the yards to go on the top. And we know that 1 yard is 36 inches. So 51 inches times 1 yard divided by 36 inches gives you 1.416, and the 6 is repeating, yards. So this means we've got 1 entire yard and then almost half of a yard. So we cannot just type into our calculator 0.41666666666. We want to hold that entire number in our calculator. So in your calculator, type -1, enter, once you've got that number there. And then your calculator should just say 0.416, repeating. And that's a measurement in yards. And now we want to convert to the next biggest unit, which is feet. So we want to get rid of our yards, change it to feet. 1 yard is 3 feet. And we get 1.25 feet. Now in the last question, we calculated that this 0.25 feet was the same thing as 3 inches. So we don't really need to do that again. We can use what we have. So we know that we have 1 whole yard, we had 1 whole foot, and then we've got this 3 inches that was left over. That means that 51 inches is 1 yard, 1 foot, and 3 inches. All right, let's go on to the next example. We're going to look at question 4 in your notes. So, Anne is framing a picture. The perimeter of the picture is 136 inches. What is the perimeter in feet and inches? Well, this is the exact same kind of question we did. We want to take a measurement that is just in inches and change it to feet and inches. So, we're going to start with 136 inches. we want to convert it to the biggest unit that we want. Inches cancels out, feet is the biggest unit, and 1 foot is 12 inches. You do the math there and you get 11.3 repeating feet. So we've got 11 complete feet. We need to figure out how many that 0.3 repeating feet is in inches. So subtract 11 in your calculator, and then you get that entire repeating decimal that we want to convert back to inches. So 1 foot is 12 inches, 0.3 repeating times 12 ends up being exactly 4 inches. So what is the perimeter in feet and inches? The perimeter is 11 feet and 4 inches. Remember, perimeter is all the way around the outside of a frame or of any shape. Now part B, the framing material is sold by the foot. It costs $1.89 per foot. What will the cost of the material be before taxes? Well, the key here is that it's sold by the foot. So if it's sold by the foot, we can't buy a part of a foot. So that means that 11 feet will not be enough to go around the picture frame. We will need 12 feet. And if we take this 12 feet and we multiply by the $1.89 per foot, again, our units of feet will cancel out and we'll just be left with dollars. And because this is money, we want 2 decimal places, and we will get $9.45. It will cost to frame the picture. All right, last one. Question 6 in your notes. A map of Alaska has a scale of 1 to 4,750,000. The distance on the map between Paxson and the Canadian border is 3 11/16 inches. What is this distance to the nearest mile? So if you remember from grade 9, we talked about these scales, and the first part of your scale was always the image or the picture, which in this case would be the measurement on the map. And then the second part of your scale is always the original, which in this case is the distance in real life. So again, we could set this up in a proportion if we wanted to. So we know that 1 unit on the map is the same thing as 4,750,000 units in real life. But what's the information that we know? Well, we know that the distance on the map that we want to know the distance of in real life is 3 11/16 inches. So we're going to put it in the numerator, because this is the image on top and this is the original on the bottom. So this has to be the image on top and this is the original on the bottom. And we don't know what the real life measurement is, so that is what we are trying to find. Now, if you remember how to solve these proportions, we can't solve them when x is in the denominator. So we take the reciprocal of both. Remember, reciprocal means to flip the fraction, switch the numerator and denominators. And when I flip this, I'm going to do 2 things at once. 11/16, I'm going to figure out what decimal that is. So if you type 11 divided by 16 into your calculator, because remember this line in a fraction means divide, you get 0.6875. So this is 3.6875 inches. Now how do we solve this proportion? Well, we want to get the x by itself, so we've got to get rid of that 3.6875. So we do that by multiplying. And we do that on both sides. And when we have 3.6875 divided by 3.6875, it divides out to 1. So all we've got left on that one side is x. And when we do that on the other side, we get 17,515,625. And this measurement would be in inches, because our original measurement of 3 11/16 was in inches. But the question says we want it to the nearest mile. So now we need to take this conversion and change it to the nearest mile. So I'm kind of running out of space, so I'm just going to erase a little bit here so that I have some room to convert. All right, so we've got our 17,515,625 inches, and we need to convert that to miles. But you'll notice on our chart, we don't have a conversion straight from inches to miles. The biggest unit we have for inches is yards, so we can take inches and convert it to yards, and then we could take yards and convert it to miles. So if we've got our yards on the top of this fraction, we're going to put it on the bottom of this one, and then those will cancel out, these will cancel out, and we'll stick the miles over here. Okay, so what's our conversion between yards and inches? Well, 1 yard is 36 inches, and 1 mile is 1,760 yards. So we're going to take this whole big long number, multiply by 1, divide by 36, then multiply by 1 and divide by 1,760. And when we do that, we get 276.446 blah, 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 blah miles. Now it says to the nearest mile. That means we want a whole mile and we don't want any decimals. So to the nearest mile, we could say this is approximately 276 miles. It's a 0.4, which means we round down and stay the same. So the distance between Paxton and the Canadian border is 276 miles in real life. All right, so that is our lesson on imperial measurement conversions. If you have any questions, you can always come ask me. You can do the rest of the examples in your notes if you feel like you need more practice and come get me to check the answers, or you can watch the whole thing again. All right, the end.